Yo, welcome to another episode of The
The
Play
play caller.
Callers. What's up, y'all? This is your boy, one half of the dynamic duo, Stephen Box, joined as always by my co-host, the one and
You
the
see the
only.
face. You know it. Cool McCain, baby.
Hey man, I just realized that we actually swapped our screens today and we're actually on opposite sides. So people are tuning in, they might be a little bit messed up by that, some of our
Oh, yeah. So
regulars.
now I have to do this and not this. Ha 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 ha.
So all in good fun, man. So real quick, anybody who is joining us right now, you can subscribe over on our YouTube channel just by going to playcollarsportstalk.com, or we are going to start actually uploading these onto our Anchor website as well, and it will go out to many different places, so you should be able to catch the show anywhere your favorite podcasts are played. So make sure that you check that out as well if you prefer an on-the-go audio option.
Absolutely. Work out to us. Drive to us.
So cool, man. We we gotta have pretty exciting NBA playoffs, man. I have to admit. I mean, it's been a little bit marred, in my opinion, by some of the injuries, but I think it kind of balances out because almost every team, or at least all the competitors, the ones that we really thought might have a chance at winning a title this year, have suffered at some point an injury to a major star. So it's at least balanced out because it's happened to everybody, but it's definitely been a very interesting playoff so far.
Yeah. I mean, just overall, a lot of the teams that you expected or not didn't make it. Uh, some that you expected to be there are there. It's been really crazy. I think the healthiest team right now is Phoenix, and they're already in the finals. So when you're looking at either one of the teams that they could be playing, you could be playing a Milwaukee team without Giannis for multiple games. You could be playing an Atlanta team without Trey Young. Um, so that's going to be obviously on the surface an advantage for Phoenix. But at the end of the day, Chris Paul, I don't think is really 100%. Um, so we'll see, man. It's just going to be whoever can grind out this series first. But just overall, like you said, man, it's crazy. You have so many injuries. You talk about with Kawhi. I mean, honestly, I don't. Whoever doesn't like it, I don't care. If Kawhi's playing for the Clippers, they're in the finals right now, and not Phoenix. And you can debate me all you want. You can pull up whatever crap you want. Kawhi was the best player in that series, and he got hurt and didn't play in it. He's to me the third best player in the league and the best two-way player. You add that to what the Clippers were already able to do, they're in the finals. Period.
I mean, I already told you my thoughts on this. I'm not necessarily going to disagree that he would put them over the top, but I am going to make the argument that we don't get this version of Paul George with a healthy Kawhi.
We don't need this version of Paul George with a healthy Kawhi. We only need this version of Paul George because we don't have a healthy Kawhi.
Well, this is a team that Kawhi basically had to go out there and pull miracles to get them past Dallas. Now, Utah, we know what happened there. Donovan Mitchell wasn't 100%, and that's what caused them. I mean, we might not even be talking about the Clippers playing the Suns at all if Donovan Mitchell is 100%. So,
But check it. Serious question. The reason that Kawhi is the third best player in the league is because if you don't have him, then obviously other people have to step up. When he's there, there are certain things that he's going to do because he's going to consistently do it. What we saw from Paul George in the games that Kawhi didn't play is we saw some really great performances. We saw some average performances. Why? Because he's not the number one guy on that team. When you're not the number one guy, you cannot consistently play like the number one guy. When you are the number one guy, you consistently play like the number one guy. That's the difference between Paul George and Kawhi Leonard.
well, like I say, I'm not going to debate whether the Clippers could have made the finals with Kawhi because I definitely feel like if you were going to tell me they can either have Kawhi or they can have Paul George, they can't have both. I would 100 out of 100 times say I'm going to take Kawhi over Paul George. So I'm not debating that he wouldn't make them better. I'm just kind of wondering if we don't get this version of Paul George who steps up, would Kawhi by himself have been enough to get the job done? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not necessarily saying that they wouldn't, but I'm also not completely sold that he would have been able to get them over the top by himself.
I'm curious. Do you think Paul George wasn't scoring any points until Kawhi got hurt?
No, I'm aware of the fact he was scoring some points, but he was
Okay.
definitely playing at a much higher level once Kawhi went down.
So he was already averaging 20 points in the playoffs before Kawhi got hurt. If you add what Kawhi was doing in the playoffs to that, no, he doesn't have to step up and score 30, 40 points a game. He's not going to be required to need to do that because you have the alpha dog there. The fact of the matter is simply this. If you have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, you have a opportunity to win against anybody in the league because you have the most complete team. If you don't have those guys, both of them, you don't have the most complete team. Without the most complete team, you're going to struggle, especially if the guy that you're missing is your top player. That's just simply that. With Kawhi, we're looking at a different finals, but he's not there. We can say that for Anthony Davis and LeBron James, them being 100%. We can say that for Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. There are several people we can say it for. I'm just saying this is the latest example of the main guy goes down. The rest of the team rallies. They did close out the last series. They got a couple of wins and a couple of close games that they lost. So kudos to them, and I think they have what they need to win. Now, a bigger concern or question for me for this team is Kawhi's kind of following the pattern that he did with the San Antonio Spurs, where he's complaining about them in the knee. So if you lose Kawhi, can they win? As currently constructed, probably not. But here's the kicker. If you don't bring Kawhi back or he opts out of his contract and decides not to come back, you open up probably about $35 to $40 million of cap space. Now, there are several guys that you could probably go get with the currently constructed Clippers team with Paul George as your lead guy going into the season, having that mind state that can be like another Reggie Jackson or another Marcus Morris, guys that can come in and play along with them and give them more depth and more versatility. Does it make them a better overall team? Possibly, but it does take away that closer, that killer dude in Kawhi. So your thoughts on how that might play out?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. When I first saw the story, Skip Bayless came out and said, "Hey, I'm hearing some of the same kind of rumblings I heard when he was in San Antonio." And the thing is, ordinarily when I hear a report like that, I kind of blow it off, right? It's like, yeah, that's just the media stirred up trouble. But we've seen this story play out with Kawhi. And you start looking at the situation. You start looking at the fact that there's never any updates on this dude's condition until like the day before the game. And then they're like, oh, yeah, he's not going to be available. Which kind of, to me, lends credence to this idea he might not even be communicating with the team right now. Like, it might just be like, the day of, like, yeah, I'm not going to be there. I'm not good. We know before when he had the issues with San Antonio, he started consulting outside doctors, which, obviously makes it hard for the team to know what's going on if you're not actually working with the team doctors. And we both know from that experience in San Antonio that once Kawhi has made up his mind that he doesn't want to be there, that he doesn't trust you, he's not going to play for you anymore. You're done. And he has the option to make that happen on his own this time instead of having to force a trade. So I think he is gone. Because if there were not any truth to these rumors, I think he would have came out and squashed it. The fact that he's staying quiet on it, to me, kind of adds a little bit of credibility to the rumor. And so I think he's gone. I would have to look at their books because I don't know if they get to have that entire 30 to 40 million that they would have been paying him because, you get a little more flexibility with your cap if you're re-signing somebody that's already on your roster versus bringing somebody in. But either way, I'm sure they're going to have some cap space without him coming back that they're going to be able to go bring somebody else in. Is that person going to be good enough to get them over the top and win a championship? Probably not. I don't see anybody out there in free agency this year that you can go pair with Paul George and say they're a lock for championship next year. But are they a team? Can they still be competitive? Can they still get in the playoffs? Absolutely. And you and I both know you get in the playoffs, anything can happen.
Yeah, the thing is, it wouldn't be bringing in a guy to try one person to try to replace Kawhi because you really wouldn't be able to replace Kawhi with one person. It would be more along the lines of bringing in, 1 to 2 guys that are good mid-level players that can do some of the things that Kawhi can do. Somebody definitely another dominant scorer if possible, and then someone who's a good solid defensive player that can replace what he can do on the wing as far as defensively. You wouldn't be able to replace him entirely with one person, but that would be why you'd go out and try to bring some other pieces in because it's more important now, as we've seen in this playoffs, to have pieces than it is to necessarily have one player.
Yeah.
A guy like Kawhi, who I think is a top 3 player in the league, yeah, it's important to have someone like that, but you can't. Everyone can have him. He's a top 3 player.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I told you a couple weeks ago before this whole story even broke that if I'm the Clippers, I'm actually contemplating this idea. Do I want to even try to bring Kawhi back? Do I want to spend that money to sign him long term? Or do I want to see if I might be able to invest in other ways to make the team better overall?
Well,
So
it's a player option, so it's not up to the team. It's
yeah.
all up to what Kawhi wants to do for this coming season. After that, they just have the sign.
Well, man, just like we always talk about how players do things to force themselves out of town, let's not kid ourselves. If the team has decided they really don't want him to sign that player option, they can do things to make him not want to come back either. Like, well, I don't know, mismanage your medical situation.
Yeah, you wouldn't do that if you're them. You would be dumb to let him
Yeah.
to try to force Kawhi out of town. That
Hey,
would be the
I'm
dumbest move
just,
you can make.
I'm not saying that it would be either. I'm just saying that that's this is the Clippers, man. I don't know what they got going on inside the organization. So
New ownership, man. This is not the same old idiotic Clippers from 5 years ago with the racist owner.
So Jedediah did have a question on this subject. If Kawhi leaves, where do you see him landing?
Definitely neither of the teams that he's suggesting, the Lakers or the Trailblazers. If he's leaving, I would say he's going to Golden State.
Yeah, he turned down the opportunity to go to the Lakers when he signed with the Clippers. So I don't foresee him going there. Not to mention the fact it would involve some kind of sign and trade in order for it to even work because LA does not have the cap space to be able to bring him in outright. So you're going to have to do some kind of sign and trade, and I don't see that happening. So I definitely do not think the Lakers are even remotely an option. I don't think the Trailblazers is an option either because while some people might talk about, oh, he could go team up with Dame, he might go team up with Dame, but it's not going to be in Portland because Dame, I think, has pretty much made it clear that he wants out. And I think that he's going to try to force that issue. So when you start looking at places that he might actually go, I think Golden State's a good one. I think Miami's another option.
Miami's always an option.
Yeah, go
That's
down
almost a
there.
cop out.
Well, I'm saying not even from that standpoint. I'm saying when you look at like what it would look like on a basketball court, right? Like what does it look like in terms of a roster? Him and Jimmy Butler together would actually be a really nice duo.
No, but all I'm
So
saying is name a star player that can't go play with Jimmy Butler. That's not named Ben Simmons. You know what I'm saying?
hey
Like
man,
Jimmy Butler has a game where he can play with almost anybody, or Carl Anthony Towns. Excuse me,
I
except
was
for
gonna say,
those two.
man, come on, man. You just took away my second answer. I was like, all right, he left a loophole. I got him, and then here you come. I'm like, this dude taking away everybody now. Any more limitations you would put on me? Just
As they come, I'll let you know. How about that?
So Jedediah says he could see Miami. Imagine a player like him learning from Pat Riley.
Well, his actual wording was under the tutelage.
Yes.
Shout out for the big word.
Well, I'm trying to help some of the people out there that might be like tutelage. What is tutelage?
Well, hey man, if you can't understand it in the concept of how it's being used, I have not a lot that I can say. Jedediah did also make a comment earlier where he spoke that not a Suns fan, but I'm just happy for Chris Paul. This looks like his best shot to win the chip he so rightfully deserves. This is his chance to win a championship. I'm not of the opinion that he rightfully deserves one. I don't think longevity and getting hurt all the time and becoming the king of all floppers means you deserve a championship. I wouldn't mind him getting one, but I'm not a fan of him getting one, primarily because my team got swept by Phoenix, and I would like anybody but Phoenix to win a championship this year. I want them to be a loser just like we are. But from a basketball standpoint, I mean, longevity is the only thing you really can say about Chris Paul. Like, there's nothing like Chris Paul is an amazing player. Don't get me wrong, but there's nothing about him that makes you like, oh man, this guy, to me, that says this guy really deserves to win a championship because he's a great guy. And, he's put in the work and all this. A lot of people put in the work. Charles Barkley, a much better player to me than Chris Paul, never won a ring. So there's a laundry list of people that I think are much better and more deserving of a championship than Chris Paul. That's just my opinion.
I mean, look, we had this conversation 2 years ago when the 49ers and the Chiefs played in the Super Bowl, and I told you as a Niners fan how annoying it was, and I know you as an Eagles fan were annoyed by it as well. The whole
More
2
annoyed.
weeks before the Super Bowl, all you heard, Andy Reid deserves a Super Bowl. Nobody deserves a championship. There's no such thing. Either you go out and you win it on the court or you don't. If you go out and win it, then you deserved it, and if you don't, then you didn't. There is no such thing as somebody deserving something just because they've been a loser for long enough. That doesn't qualify you to deserve to win a ring. Now, with that said, I don't have any issue with Chris Paul winning. I've picked Phoenix to win it all before they played the Clippers. So I'm sticking with my pick. I'm hoping he wins just so I'm right. But in terms of does he deserve it? Has he done something to earn a ring? The only way he's going to do something to earn a ring is to win 4 more games.
That's a very good way to put it. I just, I see this narrative a lot the last couple of weeks, and really since the playoffs started. Oh, Chris Paul's the best player that doesn't have a ring. Stop it. Just stop it.
Maybe best player currently in the league who doesn't have a ring.
I don't even think he's the best player currently in the league that doesn't have a ring. But
I mean, he might not be, but I'm just saying, maybe
can't
qualified a little further. Best player over 30 who doesn't have a ring. I don't know.
And's always hurt. Got to add that in there.
Okay.
Because he's had a couple of opportunities where if he could stay healthy, he may already have, some rings. I'm just saying, like, I don't buy into the whole he deserves a ring thing. I don't think he's done anything to deserve a ring, right?
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't on some team that got cheated out of a NBA Finals game that was pivotal, and now his team lost, and it was really a ring that he should have got or anything like that. He's a guy that hasn't even made it to the NBA Finals before. This is his first time making it. To me, if he's this great, amazing, absolute point guard that people want to say, how is this the first time? That's all I'm saying.
I will say this.
I'm saying.
I will say this. We wouldn't be having this conversation because Chris Paul would already have probably had a ring had a certain commissioner not vetoed a trade. So if there's any reason why I'm okay with Chris Paul winning this year, it's probably the fact that he should have been a Laker and he got screwed over and he should have already had a ring anyway.
This is where the homer alert should just fly across this dude's whole screen. You understand what I'm saying? Because if any way, shape, or form it relates back to the Lakers, it's coming out.
Yeah, always. I mean,
it should be just an automatic. Like, it should say Stephen Box, everything, and in the corner it should say Homer. It should just say Homer. You should always be on that side just so you could just add Homer right down the edge.
I mean, you could, but the problem with that is then when you start talking about the Eagles and the Nuggets, we'd have to find somewhere to transfer to your side. So,
No, you could just slap it across me too. Just pop the Homer alert up there. I'm just saying. I acknowledge it.
Yeah, we all have Homer tendencies, man. It's just some of us are willing to admit it. That's all. and I have absolutely no shame in admitting my homerism. even I even admit to you when it's unrealistic.
Now, Pat. Now back to this Sun series. Patrick Beverly. All I can really say about it, because a lot's been said already, is dude, like, as a man, I can't think of anything that another man would say to you for you to go up behind him and push him like that. Now, if he said something disrespectful to you, which possibly could have happened, because you know we've heard that Chris Paul's not this squeaky clean nice guy that tries to make himself out to be in the media, but it should have happened at that time. And the example we talked about earlier was Myles Garrett. When the alleged thing was said to him, it was an immediate reaction. It wasn't 3 minutes later, you go in and you push him in the back. So I think there's no cause for that, dude. Like you apologize. That's cool, but there's just no cause for that. Like, there's no way you should have been that upset about anything he said, or anything that he did up until that point, because the type of dude he is. You've played a whole series with him.
Yeah.
You have to have more control in that, because if you don't have that type of poise, that's the reason why the team isn't in the finals, right? Because you need dudes with poise. He's a veteran. He's not a young dude. He's a vet. You need to have poise and be more of like a leader on the team and not always that dude.
So I'm actually going to go back earlier in the series. So Devin Booker got his nose broken. He goes out. He decides he's not going to play with his mask on. And what did you say to me? All right, go out there. You do know you gotta go out there against Pat Beverly now. Going out there with no mask on, right? So
not just Pat Bev, but yeah, y'all against that team with no mask and your nose already soft.
Right. So we already know, or we already knew beforehand what kind of player he was. We knew he, I'm not gonna necessarily say he was a dirty player, but he was definitely somebody who's gonna push the boundaries at a minimum, right? You might even call him a dirty player, but at the minimum, you at least admit he pushes the boundaries. Right. So we already know you're that type of player. And if you're that type of player and you are doing those little things, we know you also chirping to people. There's no way you're not chirping to people too. So in my mind, if you're dishing it out to people, then you need to be able to take it. Therefore, there's nothing that anybody should have been able to say to you at all that was offensive enough that you lost your cool like that.
Yeah, I can't think of anything.
The real talk is, you knew that your season was over. They broke you. You couldn't handle it. And you weren't man enough to take the L. You felt like you need to go do something and make yourself look like a cross-grabbing tough guy.
But what did it actually make yourself look like?
A bia. Why you acting like a... So yeah, unacceptable, man. I know you apologized or whatever. We all know you didn't mean it. Just like everybody else come out and apologize after they do something stupid. You didn't mean it. But hey, you didn't push me in the back. Ain't no reason for me to hold on to it. I'm just gonna say you're stupid and move on.
Pretty much. Now we got another interesting tidbit that happened. So we got this whole Ben Simmons situation, and reports say that a trade was offered Malcolm Brogdon and I think at least one, possibly 2 first-round picks for Ben Simmons. Maybe just one, maybe 2. The article wasn't clear, and they rejected the offer. The Sixers did. My thought, I don't think that they're interested in trading him at this point. I think they know the value is lower than what they would want for him. So I don't think they're honestly interested in trading him at this point. That they want to try to run it back another year, see if they can improve that offense. I would say, honestly, the problem is you paid him too much. You're not going to get the kind of return that you want, because someone's going to have to absorb that salary for like 4 more seasons. And you're not giving up a lot to do that.
Yep.
For a guy that can't shoot or shoot free throws.
Nope. I mean, he plays good defense. That's all I got.
It's amazing, man. He can jump and he can score layups.
He is, well, I
A
mean, as long as,
prototypical power forward.
yeah, he makes way too much money for what he does on the court. That's the bottom line.
He didn't pay himself. I would have took the money too. That's all I'm saying about that.
I would have taken the money too. I don't blame him for taking the money. I'm not
Hey,
saying it's his fault he getting paid.
Sixers, if you want a older gentleman to eat up some contract money, I got you. Just hit me up.
Yeah. Hey, look, what y'all need me to do? Come pour some Gatorade or something? Like what?
And I was reading an article that they pay the guys that swipe the floors like $70,000 annually. They make about $70,000. It's like, that's crazy.
Let me go get my mop out real quick.
You know what I'm saying?
My demo video in.
You know what I'm saying? Better hit the Hawks up real quick, man. You can ride down the street and do it. I'm about to hit the Hornets up.
Right. You know what I'm saying? be out there at work with my Lakers shirt underneath my work shirt.
Shoot, I wear that Hornets basketball shirt where I'm there wiping the floor. But as soon as I step out the arena, it's coming off. White tee all day.
I have my Lakers shirt on underneath my Hawks gear. That's what
White
when nobody see and
day.
try to leave, but I can't have people see me leave with that Hawks gear on. That's a no.
Turn that shirt inside out.
They're like, didn't I see you on TV with a hot shirt? See these checks?
Pretty much.
But yeah, man. So flipping over to the East. So Milwaukee up 3-2 in this series. It's been an interesting one because we actually have the star player on both teams out. And with both of them out, we've had one game where Atlanta just blew Milwaukee out. And then they turned around the very next game, and Milwaukee came out and basically did the same thing to Atlanta. So it's interesting that we really, I think at this point, even though there's a 3-2 lead, I don't think there's a clear look at like which team is actually better. It seems almost like neither team really wants this.
Well, I'm going to have to quantify the blowout in Game 4, right? So, they had shaved the lead down to, I think, about 12 when Giannis got injured. I mean, the Bucks. Then, your star player gets injured in game, kind of takes the out of you, and you have a team that's already kind of showing up because they know that their playoff lives are on the line. So I mean, score-wise, Game 4 was a blowout. Like, even looking at the score, it's like right there on the cusp of a blowout. I think it's a little bit over, so that's fair. But I think if you quantify it, and that's what I think people don't want to do is quantify it. Milwaukee was actually getting back into the game until you suffered that injury to Giannis, and it's kind of like everything's taken out of you, right? All your win, all your momentum, everything is just stopped. Then other teams able to come in, pop up some points on you real quick, drop a quick 8 on you, kind of get that lead back upwards of like 18-20, and they kind of just never could really recover. So I can't argue with the blowout. I just want to quantify that for people who may not have actually watched the game, if that makes sense. Now, on top of that, what I do want to say also is I was shocked at the way Milwaukee came out in Game 5 and what they were able to do. I honestly was, shocked. Brook Lopez is a guy that can do that every game, but for some reason, he has fallen in love with the 3-point line. This is what I've been saying Brook Lopez needed to do since the beginning of the Nets series. Forsake the 3-point line, take the high percentage shots. There's nobody as big as you on the other team. Be big. If I go to the basketball court, I'm a decent 3-point shooter, right? But I'm pretty good inside. If everybody out there is smaller than me, I'm not going to go shoot threes. I'm going to go post my big self up in the middle. I'm going to get the ball and I'm going to put in some work. That's what you have to do in the NBA. Use your size advantage.
Yeah.
That's what DeAndre Ayton has been doing the whole playoffs. If Brook Lopez continues to play the way that he played last night, Milwaukee's going to win this series tomorrow night. Now, that's an if. That's not because, like I said earlier, he's not a superstar. The reason he's not a superstar is because he doesn't put up those kind of point performances consistently. But the key weapon in all of this is very simple. If the Bucks want to win in 6, PJ Tucker needs to score at least 10 points. If PJ Tucker scores double digits, they win the game.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this series, and you and I both picked Milwaukee to win, and I'm sticking with Milwaukee in 7 right now. I do think that they have a slight talent advantage if both Giannis and Trae Young both stay out the rest of the series.
Right. That definitely makes a difference.
Yeah. If Giannis stays out, Trae Young comes back, then Atlanta can easily win this. If Trae Young stays out, Giannis comes back, different ball game. So right now, I'm still sticking with Milwaukee in 7. I won't be surprised if they finish it in 6, but they have shown a tendency over and over again to fall asleep at the wheel. And Atlanta has enough scoring even without Trae Young to be able to make you pay for that if you do. So that's going to be the real question. Is Milwaukee going to come out with the mindset that they have to finish this? We talked about this with the Clippers and Suns going into game 5, 3-1 lead. Are you going to come out there hungry? Are you going to match the intensity that you know the Clippers are bringing? Phoenix didn't. Now, they did it in game 6, but they didn't do it in game 5.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Same thing. Atlanta's coming out hungry this next game. They coming out there fighting for their playoff lives.
And they had the crib.
Do not match the intensity, it's not going to end well for you.
And they had the crib. This game is in the A. So you can guarantee
that crowd in Atlanta is definitely more rowdy than the crowd in Milwaukee.
That goes without saying.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I do think Atlanta will win game 6. And then I think Milwaukee wins the whole thing in game 7 back home. But yeah, this one's still a bit of a toss-up. I'm not going to be surprised if Atlanta wins this series. I won't be surprised if Milwaukee finishes it off in 6. So this is one of those rare ones where like you just like anything could honestly happen.
Milwaukee in 6. Tomorrow night it's over. Milwaukee in 6. Big ups to Atlanta on a strong season. I'm going Milwaukee in 6. It's a wrap.
So since you're picking Milwaukee in 6 and I'm picking them in 7, I don't know what that noise is. But you're picking them in 6, I'm picking them in 7. So we both agree they're gonna get there. But let's just play the game a little bit. Let's talk about how Phoenix matches up against both teams. So since we're both picking Milwaukee, start with Milwaukee. How do you see Phoenix matching up with them?
So Phoenix has had the advantage throughout the playoffs that they haven't really gone against a dominant duo, right? Go back to the first round. LeBron was clearly hurt. Anthony Davis, one really good game, but kind of hurt the rest of the time. You go over to Denver. You got Jokic doing his thing. Not really anyone else consistently stepping up and being a number 2 option. So if you can minimize Jokic and let everybody else do what they do, you can win. Now you're going to come up against this Milwaukee team where you've got several guys that play very well on both ends of the court. You've got 2 guys, one of we know that's going to play in Drew Holiday, one that we expect to be back by sometime in that series in Giannis, 2 first-team all-defensive NBA players on the court. You've got a lot of guys out there like a Chris Middleton, PJ Tucker, different guys. They are defensive dogs. They get after you. Phoenix hasn't had that. They haven't had anybody that's really getting up into a lot of those guys. I'm not saying Milwaukee's not prone to the same lapses that everybody else has where they take times where they just don't play defense very intelligently. But when they're locked in, which is going to be most of the game, they can stop you. So those auxiliary players, Bridges, Crowder, some of those guys have been enjoying not having a lot of defense played on them and easy shots. Those are going to get more difficult for you. The defensive intensity that I see from Milwaukee when they're locked in is very impressive. Again, same problem everyone else has. They're not always locked in. But if you get to the finals and you can't be locked in for that, I don't know what to tell you. Now, in the post, you've got Ayton. You really don't have a lot else in the post. Milwaukee's going to have multiple guys in the post. Portis has finally come alive and been the same player we saw in the regular season. Giannis, if he's back, which I anticipate happening. Lopez. You've got at least 3 guys that are going to go into the post and give you work.
Yeah.
Phoenix is not going to be able to match that. That's been the advantage that Milwaukee's had throughout the playoffs. They haven't always used it, but that's been the advantage that they've really had and their defense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go back to the first round against LA when they were relatively healthy. And what we saw in that series was, I think it was game 3 in particular. LA said, you know what, we're going to stop shooting threes. And they started playing really good defense and they started working the ball inside. And they absolutely destroyed Phoenix that game. Like they had no answer for it at all. And I think that's exactly what I could see happening with Milwaukee should they choose to play their game. Should they choose to take advantage of their size, they can do that to Phoenix. They can actually get inside and dominate them on the interior. And unless Phoenix is able to go on a magical run of hitting threes at like 60, 70%, they're not going to be able to stick in the game because you're going to be able to play defense. You're going to get a couple of stops. You're shooting high percentage shots of getting down in the paint. So you're going to make a lot of your shots. That's going to make it very difficult for Phoenix. They don't have the size to do anything about it either. The thing Phoenix has going for them is Milwaukee has not shown a willingness to consistently do that.
Until this last game, out of desperation.
Well, that's why I say they'll sort of consistently do that.
Oh yeah,
I've seen you do it maybe twice in the whole playoffs. So
way too low.
Yeah. So I'm not convinced that you're going to show up and do it for 4 games.
That is.
But now Atlanta against Phoenix, that's like a totally different matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Because you really now have 2 teams that I think are almost mirror images of each other. They both play defense at times. I think Phoenix plays a little bit better defense than Atlanta does. You have dynamic scores on both teams. Neither one has like a true inside presence. They both have guys that can play inside, but they're not going to be dominant like what you see with Milwaukee. They both have guys that can hit threes. They both have superstars, and they both have that kind of cockiness to them. And they both have guys that are willing to get in your face and be a little bit nasty. So these 2 teams are actually very similar. I think it will be a really fun series to watch. If it came down to that, I would give Phoenix the edge simply because of Chris Paul, assuming that he can stay healthy. I think his veteran leadership is what will put them over the top over Atlanta.
My question is, I'm going through Atlanta's lineup, and I'm thinking, who's Chris Paul going to guard? That's my question. Who is Chris Paul going to guard?
I mean, maybe they're going to let him guard Trae Young since ain't nobody going to stop him anyways.
Well, here's the thing. If you put Chris Paul on Trae Young, you're basically saying I'm giving Trae Young 40-plus points every game. Because all you people that love Chris Paul, if you see this or if you listen to this, Trae Young will cook that dude, him 2, 3, 4 times, then throw him on the grill and cook him again. So
absolutely.
If you make that decision and this is the moments that Chris Paul's in the game, because he doesn't play the whole game, but he's a starter. He's going to be deficient as a defensive player, I think, if you have that series. I think with Milwaukee, the way Drew Holiday plays at times, and Some of the other guys that we bring out, did they bring out the bench like a Pat Connaughton, or some of the other shooters, Gary Forbes, just guys that he could guard um, because they're not going to do but so many things. They're more specialized on the offensive end. But I think when you look at Atlanta, there's a lot of young gazelles that run and play hard on both ends of the court. And asking Chris Paul to guard one of those guys is going to be difficult and it's going to be a clear disadvantage. So I think whoever he guards, that's the guy that you're going to go after. I think if you get Chris Paul, you're taking like a Trey Young or Gallinari or some of those other guys, and you're switching until you get them on Chris Paul, and you're going to work.
Yeah, I mean, it may be a situation where you may have to pick your poison. You either might have to let Chris Paul go out there and cover whoever he's going to cover and hope that person doesn't do too much, or you're going to have to put him on Trey Young and then give him help and then hope that somebody else doesn't beat you. So I'm not sure how they're going to do that because it's a good point you bring up. He is a liability on defense. You're either basically admitting to the fact that if you put him on somebody like Trey, that you're going to get cooked, or you're going to give him help on somebody like that and hope that somebody else doesn't beat you, or you kind of throw him on somebody else and you hope that that person just doesn't really do much. I mean, that's really your options because Chris Paul, as much as he gives you on the offensive side, he is a liability on defense. Now, where he might be able to negate some of that is with his quick hands and his superb flopping skills. You might be able to negate some of that. So
superb, high level.
But you thought I was going to let Jedediah have all the fun with the big words today, man? Come
on. Now, another thing I wanted to briefly discuss. I know we're going to get to this whole NCAA NIL situation and how that's flowing, but great story last week. Sha'Carri Richardson, for those who don't know, young lady that excelled and qualified for the Olympic team in the 100 meter. Yep. Broke the world record actually, and she's now suspended for 30 days for marijuana use. I saw an interview that she did today where she basically, took ownership for, using, marijuana. It was a bad choice. She actually found out from reporters that her mother passed away. And that happened, I think a day or two before her Olympic trials. And she was in Oregon, a state that does allow you to go anywhere and purchase, marijuana. Obviously, as a Olympic hopeful at that point, that's not the wisest decision to make. But I think in the frame of mind that she may have been in when she did that, that was not part of the thought process. Don't condone doing that, especially when you have a lot to lose in a situation like that. But sometimes I think we have to look at there's a person there. And she said she's been going through a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, a lot of anxiety and different things. So I think we have to start looking at how serious depression, mental illness, and things are with athletes and realize that they're people just like us. It's like we're depressed, just like we made bad choices, they do as well. And she's 21 years old. And I'm not condoning this in any way, shape, or form, but I see a lot of people that are like, she's got a crappy circle around her and she's this, she's that, and she needs better people and she shouldn't be making decisions like that. And where could she even get marijuana at? And listen, in a state where marijuana is not illegal, you can go into stores and buy it. Just like you can a pack of cigarettes, alcohol, whatever. It's against the Olympic rules, definitely. And she took ownership for that. She still could possibly have an opportunity to do the 4x100 relay because that would be after her 30-day suspension. Definitely disappointed in her because she was definitely kind of skyrocketing, and you kind of hurt that with this. But I will say that we've had other athletes like Michael Phelps have some problems with illegal substances, and the blow up wasn't the same. And I'm not saying that to say any other argument, but there's a question of consistency with this. Again, you made a bad decision. You're going to pay for it. You're going to accept, your punishment as you should as an adult. But at the same time, if this is her punishment, when this happens to others, I want the same punishment to be consistent. And when it's happened to people in the past, the punishment should be consistent. That's my only thoughts on it. I hope that she's able to get back. I hope she's able to do that for about 100, and then she's able to destroy her leg of it and help the team win. And this gives her a story for when she's 24 to come out with in the 2024, excuse me, 2020, yeah,
Why?
4 Olympics. No, it's 2024 Olympics.
Oh,
Are
that's
normally every
right, because
4 years.
they pushed back a year. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this puts back a year for COVID. But yeah, so hopefully that'll be what happens with this. But I think it needs to at least be addressed, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this subject.
Yeah, this is one of those things where, and quick question for you for clarification, because I'm trying to remember when all this went down. Was Michael Phelps, was his issues after his last Olympics, or was it before? Like, did he compete after all that stuff?
I'm pretty sure. I looked briefly at it. I'm pretty sure he competed again.
Okay, because I couldn't remember for sure. So my thing is, on one hand, I kind of get it where it's like, hey, the rules are there, right? You can't give people special, you know, privileges or around the rule if you're going to have it there. Now, we can talk about whether the rule should even be there in the first place, because obviously no one has ever come out and said, weed makes you run faster. No one has ever come out and said that ever. Like, and if they did, they were already high when they said it. So the thing is, this is not a competitive advantage for her. It didn't do anything to make her run faster. She didn't get any benefit from it. So the fact that this is what you're punishing her over, to me, is silly in and of itself. So we can talk about the rule and if the rule should even exist in the first place. And I do get to an extent of saying, you know, you knew the rules, you violated them, now you're serving punishment for it. I don't even necessarily have an issue with the fact that you're having a punishment of some sort for it. Now, I don't know the 30-day thing. I don't know if that's like their mandatory rule or if they, dish that out after the fact and that's subjective or whatever. But I will also say this. To me, this is one of those situations we need to kind of look at and say, is this maybe the time that we change this rule, right? Like, I'm not saying that you go and give someone a pass, but this is a situation where you do look at it and say, do we need to change the rule itself and allow her a pass as part of that rule change? Because A, there's no performance boost for her. B, as you said, she's has all this stuff going on, and we are making this big push in this country to talk about mental health and mental illness and all these different things, but we keep sending the message to people that it's not okay to not be okay. We keep telling people that it's not okay to find ways to actually deal with that. If you're going to say, okay, you can't go do this, then you have to be aware of the fact that there are states where it is legal. So to me, the fact that you have something that's illegal for the Olympics, but it's legal in certain states, is problematic as well. So there's a lot of layers to this. And ultimately, what I would love to see them do is go back and not just say, oh, we're going to make an exception just because. But I would like them to say, you know what, this rule is stupid. And we're going to go and we're going to change it. And as part of changing that, we're going to actually give her a pass. Because I think it brings up some great conversation around mental health and mental illnesses. And it's something that we need to start taking a lot more seriously, especially when you start talking about professional athletes who are under very high levels of stress. And she is far from the first athlete that we've heard stories about taking some kind of illegal substances. You brought up Michael Phelps. He's not the only one. We're both wrestling fans. We were just having this conversation the other day about all the wrestlers that have died at fairly young ages because of drugs and alcohol that they've put into their body to deal with all the pain and everything they go through. So this is something that I feel like we need to open up a discussion on. And just simply throwing a 30-day ban at somebody is probably going to add to her mental health issues, not actually do anything to alleviate them.
Yeah, it's definitely going to not help her anxiety.
Yep.
Man, I agree with a lot of what you say, man. We just got to get to a point where organizations kind of start to say, all right, we have rules. Maybe we should make where we can have exceptions or where we can maybe lessen punishment in certain situations. Because I would honestly say, if this were, a gold medal, multi-time gold medalist athlete, that it would be not as publicized.
Yeah.
And I don't think the band would be the same as well. Just my opinion, but just putting it out there.
We had this conversation a few weeks back when there was the whole thing with LeBron when he got went to the party, and we talked about the fact that star athletes get certain passes, and you're right. If this was someone who was a higher profile Olympian, they probably this probably gets swept under the rug. We never even hear about it. So yeah, I mean it's unfortunate, man. I mean, had this been like a performance boosting substance, I'd be like, hey, you were stupid. You got to suffer the consequences. But this wasn't something that's going to help you in that regard.
Not at all.
So yeah. So that's my thoughts on that, man. So we got about 8 minutes left. So I do want to kind of dive in a little bit here. And then if anybody has any questions, they want to go ahead and throw in the chat for us to talk about at the end. Leave some time for that as well. But this whole NIL thing, which stands for name, image, likeness, is opened up the opportunity for a couple of things. So one, college athletes can now actually get paid for their name, their image, and their likeness, right? Which is good, because for far too long, I feel we've had this conversation before. Far too long, schools have made money off of athletes. And you've even seen athletes used in commercials that they got zero compensation for. So somebody was making money off of them. College football by itself is $1 billion industry. So you're over here talking about all this money that gets made off of these kids and they get nothing. And then people are like, oh, they get a free scholarship. You know what? People who have a high GPA also get a free scholarship and get to come to school for free, and no one is making money off of them. So I'm glad that they finally did this, personally.
Well, I'll say this. For what's happened so far, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with someone being a high-level athlete or a highly talented athlete, because Master Peace and Hersey Miller actually signed a $2 million deal with a tech company to be, like the name and face of that company. So I don't have a problem with highly talented or athletes that have a name or that have a fan base, a following, being able to get some funds off that. I just am concerned with how deep it is going to go. You know what I'm saying? So I'm good with, hey, like Armando Bacot, one of the players from my Tar Heels. I think he's got like a $20,000 endorsement deal with a seafood chain. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem with that, right? Because he gets more people into the shop, helps that business make more money. They give him compensation for his time, his efforts, and his likeness, and his name. His name is image and likeness. I don't have a problem with that. I just don't want it to get to a point where agents are getting to these kids too soon and other things are happening. I have no problem with them going out and hitting it on their own and getting it. And I hope the NCAA does not get involved as far as when they're receiving their funds, how they can receive them, how much they can get, things like that. I know the NCAA, if they start to see a lot of kids really getting some money out there, so they're going to try to find a way to get a piece of that money because they are corrupt. Let's be real. But I'm happy that they can make, because some of these kids, man, they don't come from, the best environments at home. They don't
Right.
have anyone that can send them money or things. So this is a way they can have a little money. Some of these men and women may never go pro. So this is a chance for them to use their opportunity when they're at the top to, make some extra money. So I don't have a problem with that aspect. Just just want to make sure that it stays within the realm of whatever the parameters are, and hopefully it doesn't allow for like kids that are in the first, second year of school, not planning on going pro or anything, to be able to sign with an agent or be able to sign deals with shoe companies and things like that. I don't want it to go to that level with them, because I think that's when you start to take the amateur away. And I don't want that to happen.
Well, they can actually sign with agents, so that's already a thing. They can do that, which is good and bad. I mean, because you have to look at the fact you're talking about 18, 19-year-old kids. A lot of times they need somebody who actually can represent them, and hopefully a lot of these kids will put people around them who will help them understand money,
Right. But
because
is
we've
that
also seen a lot of stories about young people getting a lot of money and it ends very tragically, and I hope we don't see any stories like that.
But that's the thing. You're bringing, I mean, obviously you can have agents, but that doesn't mean you should, right? Some
Yep.
people are going to go and do it, and hey, it is what it is. But I think that's a piece that's dangerous. That's where I don't like. That's where I think
Yep.
you get to the point of where you can start to have these kids make the money and then it not be theirs. I think to sign a contract for, some of the things I've seen kids doing so far, and some of the things that some of the teams or players are wanting to do, like my quarterback and your quarterback,
Yep.
go out, go to camps, sign things, things like that. You're getting X amount of dollars for every signature you do. You're getting extra amount of dollars for a speaking
Yep.
engagement, things like that. I'm cool with. But I think when you start getting to things where you really need an agent for, and the bigger companies and stuff, that's where I get concerned, because that's where I feel like you said, other people are going to come in and prey on 17, 18,
Mhm.
19-year-old kids,
Yep.
that some of them don't have anyone in their family who understands what's happening and how these things could be affected. Um, how some of them, if they do go professional, now you're locked into a certain agency that may not be good for you at that point. So that's where I
Yep.
started to get concerned with the NCAA allowing things to go too far. Now, if you have it where they can get an agent that can represent them in the endeavors that they're doing in college, but once the
Yep.
college is over, then they are pretty much free. And that's one thing. I'm sure the
Yep.
NCAA did not go that far into detail to help these kids. So that's where my concern comes in. It doesn't matter. I'm not talking about any specific social or economic background, any specific race. I'm saying there's a lot of families, even families that may be well off, that have never dealt with an agent before, and how they run their
Yep.
business and what they do. So you couple that with kids that don't know any better either. That can be very dangerous, and that can be concerning for me. And I'm myself am a parent of a teenager, so they may be good enough to go to college and have these opportunities, and I wouldn't want them to get taken advantage of either.
I mean, personally, the NCAA likes to stick their nose in a lot of stuff. So personally, if you want to stick your nose in this, what I'd like to see you actually do is actually provide some education to these kids on some financial responsibility. Maybe you give them access to legal advice to have somebody look over these contracts that they're signing, because you're actually letting these kids go out here and sign these contracts, and you and I both know that these companies are aware of the fact that these kids don't know what they're doing. They're going to put a
Mhm.
lot of terms in these contracts that are not going to be favorable to them, and all the kids are going to be thinking about is the money they get. So there's definitely some downsides to it. I'm glad they're getting paid. One positive that I think could potentially come out of this is when you have that person who is not necessarily a superstar, but they're a really good player. Maybe they get an endorsement deal where they can make a couple $1 million. That might be the difference in that person staying and graduating rather than trying to go to the NFL or to the NBA or whatever, and trying to, go on to that next level so they can get paid like a pro. If they're able to make enough money off of endorsements to be able to support their family, because you and I both know a lot of people leave school early because they need to be able to provide for their families. And so you're giving them the opportunity to do that while they're still in school. So I don't have an issue with that. I think you bring up a good concern. Another thing that's obviously going to come out of this, and at some point, I think some regulations will get put around here. As of right now, there is nothing that I've seen that says that boosters won't be able to offer endorsements to athletes. They're just saying that it can't be for performance or it can't be for recruitment purposes. But how you gonna really like do that? We both know that you're going to give someone this endorsement deal to recruit them. All you have to do is wait until the person gets on campus to have them sign anything in order to make it look like it wasn't for recruitment purposes. So we both know that's going to happen. So as some of the bigger programs that have big sponsors around them, and this, if you're a Pac-12 fan, you're probably drooling right now because you're thinking about all the tech companies out there in Silicon Valley who can actually pay these kids a bunch of money to come to some of the West Coast teams, and that might start taking away some traffic from the SEC, and we all know what's going to happen if the SEC starts to suffer in recruiting because of this. They're gonna find a way to shut that down real quick. So that's kind of where my only concern is. But at the same time, maybe it will make things a little better. We'll finally get some of this recruiting above board because we all know what happens. So now we can just get it a little bit above board and then have a little bit more visibility to what's going on. So that's my thoughts on it, man. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit the rest of the things on the head, man. Nothing more that really needs to be said, about that. Just want to remind everyone, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button when you're checking us out. We have the different options that are available for you to listen to us. You have the ability, if there's a topic you want to discuss with us, to hop on. You can always leave your comments. We'll get to them. We'll talk about them. Come be interactive with us. Let's have a good time. Let's talk sports. Let's talk a little bit of other things going on in the world, man. And let's have fun for an hour.
Absolutely, man. And if you want to listen to us on the go, maybe if you tuned in late, you didn't get to catch the entire episode tonight, and you're on the go, you can also find us on your favorite podcast stations. Our homepage is going to be anchor.fm/the-play-callers. So we'll put that link on. Y'all can go check that out as well. But make sure you subscribe over there. Subscribe here if you prefer video. And that's really all there is to it, man. And then every week we can chime in. If you head over to the podcast page, there's a button. You can also leave us voice messages over there. So tons of ways to interact with us. And that's what we're about, man. We're about live, interactive sports talk around here.
Yes, sir.
So with that, man, it is time to call it a night. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Appreciate Jedediah for the dropping the big words on us tonight. If you missed that, you have to go back and see what the big words were. So appreciate you dropping some knowledge on us, Jedediah, and everybody else who tuned in to the show tonight. Much love and appreciation. We'll see you next Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Indubitably.
Play callers out.